For Component 5, our group chose to focus on Dr. Mike Coyne from the University of Connecticut.
Hi guys, Skip here, aka the coolest male NCLI scholar. So Dr. Coyne started off the interview talking about how he thinks there's a false dichotomy between nomothetic and idiographic. But if he had to choose, he would say he's nomothetic. And I think for many of you that have spoken with him or seen his presentations at CEC, you'll understand a little bit about why he feels that way, especially with a recent study they did that was tier 2, and we'll talk about that one later on in this presentation. One of the reasons he says that he's both is because he starts with interventions that are designed for larger groups, so say tier 2 interventions typically, and then he'll take those interventions and tailor them to be individualized for specific students. Dr. Coyne went on to talk about need to improve the quality interventions that are designed to target groups. So once again, this is something along the line of a tier 2 intervention and finding ways to make it more responsive to students, individual students, without making this a tier 3 individualized intervention. So he gave 3 examples, which would be more opportunities to respond, corrective feedback, and additional modeling. And I think this is going to be extremely useful and important when we're talking about practitioners and how they can use this in their classroom and still reach their varying students. He then went on along the same line of thought to tell us that we can focus on finding ways to manipulate active ingredients in interventions to make them more effective and efficient, which I think is something, once again, all practitioners do. So if we can find ways to do that and save them the time, I think it would be very useful.
In terms of where he falls on the idiographic to nomothetic spectrum, Dr. Coyne identifies more with the nomothetic approach because he believes students with reading deficits often have similar needs. However, his research supports individualizing interventions by tweaking standard protocols. He gave an example when he conducted a Tier 2 early reading intervention with adaptations for non-responsive students while still staying within the context of the program. An example of this was allowing teachers to repeat the lesson. Students with the adjusted program did better than students in the standard program. So he believes by exploring both approaches that improvements can be made to interventions so that they are more effective for a wider range of students.
Dr. Coyne's perspective is both similar and different to other researchers in this module. For example, in contrast to Dr. Coyne, Dr. Betsy Talbot is strongly on the idiographic side of the spectrum. Her work focuses on behavior interventions. These type of interventions are done within the context of development, which is individualistic in nature. Similar to Dr. Coyne, Dr. Deborah Simmons believes that the quality design of instruction is an important building block for the idiographic approach. She states that good instruction is good instruction. Also similar to Dr. Coyne, Dr. Marsha Barnes believes in the utilization of both the idiographic and nomothetic approaches. She states that there are only so many methods in which to read and to do math. We each found this module very interesting. We learned a lot from the readings and from the videos. However, a few questions remain. For example, how is fidelity measured when program adjustments are made? Second, how is learning and performance different, and how are they the same? And finally, how do we examine what components of an intervention are effective?
Hi friends, Skip again. So I liked a lot of what Dr. Coyne said. I think all of it was amazing. I especially was interested in or agreed with him when he talked about sometimes not needing to have a new intervention and just being able to take those interventions and intensify them to meet the needs of our non-responsive students. I think that a lot of times we don't need to always be reinventing the wheel. If we have something that works typically, then we can usually take that and try to tailor it for specific students and help meet their needs. The one thing that I said I'd like to still learn more about is how do you do that with still staying within your original plan and not making too many changes. Thanks, enjoy.
I really enjoyed this module and learning more about the idiographic and nomothetic approaches to research. I agree that underlying brain structures and networks provide a framework of learning, and thus this limits the approaches to learning, similar to the perspective of Dr. Marsha Barnes. I'm also interested in the idea of treatment by aptitude. I believe it is both practical and logical to start from a nomothetic approach for developing effective interventions, and then transitioning to a more individualized idiographic approach.
After completing the module and thinking about where I fall on the nomothetic to idiographic spectrum, I like the idea of starting with a larger model similar to a nomothetic approach and then individualizing it to make the intervention more effective to a larger number of students. However, my research interests focus on behavioral interventions, specifically the connection between behavior and academics, which makes me more supportive of idiographic principles similar to those that Dr. Talbot talked about in her video.